Once upon a time in Ely, a determined, hard-working kid had big ambitions. He was told to get real. Big things just don't happen to people like us. Luckily, he didn't listen and carried on working hard to achieve his dreams. And here I am, Jason Mohammad, the hard-working lad who was made in Ely. I'm a broadcaster with BBC Sport, BBC Wales, and BBC Radio 2. I was born and brought up in Ely in Cardiff as a Muslim, and I had a dream of one day presenting some of the biggest shows on TV and radio. I went to a little school in Cairo, in Ely, then went to university to study Welsh and politics in Swansea, and then Cardiff to do television. And at that time, many people said, you wouldn't achieve your dreams. This is me doing some of the biggest shows on television and radio. BBC Sport, BBC Radio 2, and also the FA Cup final. This is me in 1991 playing rugby for Cairo Ely. And yes, I am wearing shorts. They are the shortest shorts that we ever had in our kit. The reason I'm showing you this image is because it was about this time when I told people I wanted to work in television. Many of my teachers supported me and helped me. But I have to be honest, some people, when I told them I wanted to host Match of the Day, for example, said, no chance. You'll never get there. Simply because I came from Ely and my surname was Mohammad. But I had the determination to succeed. And I told them that my ambition is to aim high. One of my great heroes is Muhammad Ali, the great boxer, the great philosopher. And he once used this quote. And listen carefully to the words. Champions aren't made in gyms. Champions are made from something they have deep inside them. They have to have the skill and the will. But here's the best line. The will must be stronger than the skill. Just think about that. You can have all the talent in the world, but unless you've got heart, unless you've got graft and determination, you won't succeed. And I use that sentence every single day. It's on the wall in my kitchen. It's on my desk at work. It's on my desk at my home office. Just think about that quote. I moved into the BBC, working in the newsroom, and then moved on to sport, working on the rugby with legends like these, presenting the Six Nations. Remember, I was a kid in Ely. They wrote me off, but I proved them wrong. And then I moved into football. And they gave me an opportunity to show what I could do on the big stage. And this picture shows what hard work and determination and graft and skill and will can do. This is the publicity shot that the BBC used for the World Cup finals. And that little boy who grew up in Ely, kicking a football around, hoping and dreaming one day of being a commentator. I wasn't good enough to play football. One day to be pitch side, suddenly on the biggest stage of all. I hosted the World Cup final and the European Championship finals. I now present Final Score on the BBC, just before Strictly and Doctor Who, and Match of the Day 2, and I also do the Olympic Games. It is a dream job. It was the job I always wanted when I was young, growing up in Ely and Cairo. I work with amazing people, superstars in sport. Can you name these footballing heroes? Sometimes I can't really believe I do this for a living, but you can do it too, especially with those words from Muhammad Ali. Recently I was in France for the Rugby World Cup. I've also been hosting the Football FA Cup. And as you can see, the dream job of all, presenting the iconic Match of the Day in Russia in the World Cup in 2018, alongside Alex Scott and Matty Upson. I hope my story shows that you can achieve whatever you want to achieve, no matter which school you go to, no matter where you come from, no matter what your background. Because I say to people, if I can do it, you can do it. If you have the hard work, the determination, like the great Muhammad Ali, and also the ability and the desire to go for your dream jobs, you can absolutely achieve your dreams. I never thought I would sit one day hosting the Olympic Games on BBC television. But I had incredible people along the way. But most importantly, I had the determination and the desire. And I leave you with my phrase that I use very often with the students that I work with at a media academy that I founded here in Wales. Aim high. Diolch yn fawr iawn. Thank you very much. Thank you very much indeed. Do we have any questions then?
What has been your favourite experience while working this job?
Wow, what a great question. There have been many amazing moments, but I have to say, probably being in the World Cup final studio, like you saw that picture, was incredible. With a little boy years ago with a dream of being at the World Cup, and then suddenly being the only BBC presenter in the World Cup final in Brazil was a dream come true. Yeah, so I'd probably say World Cup final 2014, Argentina won. Oh no, I got the score wrong. Argentina 0, Germany 1. That's probably my favorite. Thank you very much.
Why did you become a sports person?
Well, I wasn't good enough to be a sports player, unfortunately. So I knew that the next best thing would be to stand at the side of a pitch. And I actually started my career in news, but I didn't really like news. So I thought, I'm not going to travel the world much doing news, so I'm going to do some sport. Because like the Olympics are always abroad. But I started my Olympics in 2012 in London. And I just decided that I wanted to see the world. And because I was such a sports fan growing up, that I thought, what a way to earn a living, to get paid to go to a World Cup final. It is a dream job. Thank you very much.
Have you got any presenters that you look up to?
That's a really good question. You want names now, don't you? Yeah. Yeah, there are two amazing presenters that I do look up to, and it's a great question. So the two presenters that I've seen them work and think to myself, I hope to be as good as them one day, are Gabby Logan and Claire Balding. Claire, I watched her do an Olympics program in the Winter Olympics in Russia in 2014, and she literally had an iPad, an earpiece, and we were in Russia and the team were all in Manchester, in Salford. And I thought to myself, how has she put this show together? It was incredible. And Gabby Logan is like, Gabby and Claire are the best broadcasters that I work with, and I've seen them, and if I can be anywhere near as good as those two, then I will have done a good job. So yeah, I look up to those two and often get some tips from them as well, because they are the best. Because the reason is because they make it look so easy. And I'm sure when you're watching TV, you get nervous if you're watching people who are nervous on TV. Like I can't watch nervous people on telly. Frightens the life out of me. I'm like, oh my God, they're so nervous. But those two just make it look so relaxed and comfortable. And they were both very lovely to me when I started working in sport as well. And they gave me lots of tips. So I'll forever be grateful to Claire and Gabby. Thank you for your question.
Is presenting live nerve-wracking?
Is presenting nerve-wracking? Well, imagine having about 10 people talking to you at the same time in your ear whilst looking down the camera and trying to host final score. So I remember the most nervous I've ever been was my first ever Olympics. So it was on a beach in Rio, in the Copacabana beach, world famous beach, you probably know it. And we had a big studio built, and I wasn't nervous until I looked up. And you know the 5 rings, the Olympic rings? I was like, what am I doing here? How did this happen? And then they were counting in my ear. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Cue Jason. And I heard the music, and my heart was just like racing. Because there's like 7 million people watching at home, you know? And it's all on me. and I was in the studio all on my own. But as soon as the red light went on, by then I'd had about 16 years experience of working in Wales and working on BBC Sport. So once I got going, it was fine then. But yeah, the first couple can be very nerve-wracking. But I'd like to think I'm over that now.
Would you be able to share a memorable or challenging experience from your career that taught you a valuable lesson?
Oh yes, absolutely, I can. There was one where I raced in to do an interview with a football manager, and he accused me of not doing my homework. And I asked a question, and it was a pretty dull question, but I'd been really busy that week, and I hadn't prepared. And it was a big, big, valuable lesson. So I think I'd said something like, you know, you haven't scored in your last 5 games, and actually it was wrong. I think they had scored 1 goal in 5 games, so he corrected me live on TV, and I thought, never ever will I go into a show. It was only a 2-minute interview. I'll never ever go into the interview room when the managers speak to you after the game. This was before the game as well, and luckily, I don't think anyone picked up on it, but we all laughed about it. But I thought, I'll never go into a program ever again without checking my stats. So yeah, it's a horrible place to learn a lesson, mind, on live TV. These are great questions.
What one word sums you up?
Oh, wow. I'll let you describe it. What would you say?
Ambitious.
Ah, very nice. Thank you very much. Yeah, I think it's ambitious, driven is another word that I would use, because I'll just go back to my background. When you come from a place where I come from, Ely and Cardiff, and you tell people one day you want to present Match of the Day, immediately they'll say, come on kid, you haven't got a chance. And that's what happened. But I use those words to fuel the ambition. So I often say to people in situations like this, in presentations, the worst thing you can do is write people like me and you guys off, because we use that as fire. And that's the one thing I would urge you all to do today. You've heard that from the other guest speaker today, is if anyone does write you off, go out there and prove them wrong.
How did you stay motivated and overcome challenges of Ely?
That's a very good question. Very good question. I had incredible people around me. So I had amazing teachers, amazing friends, because a lot of my friends said that they just wanted to get a job straight from school, okay? But because I knew that I wanted to do this business, I had to stay on the right path. And that was by listening to my teachers, listening to the many people, my football coaches, the people who were at my youth club. When I told them this is my dream, they said, you'll get there, kid. You just need to stay on the right path. So it was a bit of that, but also I think I was blessed with almost like a desire that I had in me, that I knew I could make it. And when people would write me off and tell me that you've got no chance, I would use that, like I said earlier, as a fire. And that's what I urge you to do. Because it doesn't matter where you come from, what your background is, you can do it. And you have to believe. And you heard Trudy say that earlier. You have to believe in your ability. And you have to go there. And I say to people, I will work harder, I will run faster, I will jump higher, to use those Olympic themes, than anyone else. People sometimes say to me, you're on TV all the time. You're on the radio all the time. I turn my radio on, you're there. Some people in this room say that to me. But that's because I love what I do. And I haven't come this far to sit on my backside and not be ambitious. There are still many, many more things I want to do in TV and radio. Many more shows I want to work in. And it all comes from my background. It all comes from coming from and having the pride of coming from my home area of Ely and Cardiff. And especially Kyra, the other side, because that's where I grew up, on the Kyra side. And I hope my story gives you that belief. And you can see yourself in this story, right? See yourself in this story. Don't let anyone tell you you can't achieve your dreams, be it in law, media, academia, sports, whatever your field. Don't let anyone tell you that you can't achieve your dreams. Because I am living proof of that. If I can do it, then you can do it.
Is there anything you would do differently if you could go back in time?
Earn more money? It's a really good question. It's a very good question. I think maybe I would have moved to sports earlier than I did. So I stayed in news for a long time. But it was a good experience because I learned how to tell stories and write and be able to work under pressure. When you work in a newsroom, sometimes it's a blank sheet of paper at 9 in the morning. By 6:30, you want your news, right? So I've got to go out there and make sure the news is there. But I think I perhaps stayed too long in the newsroom. I started to get a little bit bored, and then I decided then to move into sport. And by the time I moved into sport, there were a few big events that I'd missed. So I'd missed a couple of Olympic Games, a couple of Football European Championships. And people tell me that the World Cup in Germany in 2006, they keep saying to me, you should have come to that one. That was the best World Cup. So I wish I'd made my move into sport a little bit earlier because, like I say, it's an absolute dream job. So I don't regret much. In fact, I often say, something happens in live TV, we move on. And perhaps that's the other thing that I used to worry about, things that went wrong in live television. As you get older and a bit more experience as a broadcaster, you learn to understand that sometimes, you just have to bounce back off the ropes, if I can use a boxing term, and move on. But fundamentally, I wish I'd moved into sport a little bit earlier. Thank you very much. Thank you. Great questions. Has listening to my story made you interested in a career in the media? Choose one wildcard media career, something you've never considered before, and research it. What does it pay? What skills do you need? What qualifications would you require? Keep an open mind, and maybe you'll find the perfect role for you. Happy searching.